Subscribe to Storylab for more stories. Now let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Foundation. Michael Woodard had built his life like he built his construction company, with precision, integrity, and an unshakable foundation. At 34, he owned Woodard Construction, a mid-sized firm that had earned a reputation for quality work and fair dealing across 3 counties. His calloused hands and sharp mind had transformed a small inheritance into a thriving business worth millions. He'd met Teresa Shea at a charity gala 5 years ago. She was stunning. Auburn hair, emerald eyes, and a smile that could disarm anyone. She worked in marketing for a pharmaceutical company, ambitious and confident. Michael fell hard and fast. Teresa seemed to appreciate his success and stability, and after a whirlwind courtship, they married in a ceremony that cost more than most people's houses. The first cracks appeared subtle. Teresa's increasing demands for expensive trips, her complaints about his working hours, her new circle of sophisticated friends who looked down on his blue-collar roots. But Michael attributed it to adjustment. He worked harder, earned more, hoping to bridge whatever gap existed between them. "You know what your problem is, Mike?" His business partner and longtime friend Owen Norris had said over beers 6 months ago. "You're too good for your own good. Some people see kindness as weakness." Michael had laughed it off. Owen was divorced, bitter about women in general. But now, standing in a hospital parking lot at 2 a.m., rain beginning to fall, Michael realized Owen might have been right about more than just business. Teresa had gone into labor 3 hours ago. Michael had been calm, supportive, handling the logistics while she panicked. Everything seemed normal until she sent him for her overnight bag. "Babe, grab my overnight bag from the car," she'd said between contractions. "I forgot it in the passenger seat." Michael found the bag easily enough. But underneath it, scattered across the leather seat, were documents that made his blood turn to ice. A paternity test request form, already filled out with appointments scheduled for next week. A preliminary divorce filing. And folded between them, a handwritten note in Teresa's familiar script. "He's not yours. Don't come back. Get lost from our lives." The rain intensified as Michael stood there, processing the betrayal. 9 months of excitement, of preparing for fatherhood, of loving a woman who was carrying another man's child. 9 months of lies. He looked up at the hospital window, 3rd floor, room 314. Through the glass, he could see Teresa in her bed, but she wasn't alone. A tall man with dark hair was embracing her, kissing her forehead with the tenderness of a lover. Michael recognized him immediately. Julius Caldwell, one of Teresa's pharmaceutical colleagues. The man she'd insisted was just a friend. Michael's phone buzzed. A text from Teresa. "Where are you with my bag? I need you up here now." Instead of anger, Michael felt something colder, more calculating. His construction background had taught him that before you demolish something, you need to understand its structure completely. You plan every cut, every explosion, every step of the destruction to ensure nothing valuable gets damaged, except the target. He pulled out his phone and made one call. "Owen, it's Mike. I need you to meet me at the office in 20 minutes. Bring the cameras from the job sites and your laptop. We got work to do." Chapter 2. The Discovery. Owen Norris arrived at Woodard Construction's office to find Michael already inside, documents spread across the conference table like evidence in a war room. The older man had been Michael's partner for 8 years, and he'd never seen his friend look so focused or so dangerous. "Jesus, Mike, what happened? You said Teresa was in labor." "She is, with Julius Caldwell's baby." Michael's voice was steady, matter-of-fact. He slid the paternity test request across the table. "Found this in her car, along with divorce papers and a lovely note telling me to disappear." Owen examined the documents, his weathered face darkening. "Son of a bitch. How long do you think this has been going on?" "At least 10 months, obviously. But I'm thinking longer." Michael opened his laptop. "I've been naive, Owen, willfully blind. But that ends tonight." For the next hour, Michael methodically reviewed their joint finances, phone records, credit card statements, anything Teresa hadn't hidden well enough. Owen watched his partner work with growing respect. The devastated husband was nowhere to be seen. This was the Michael who'd build a company from nothing, who could spot problems 3 moves ahead. "Look at this," Michael said, pointing to their credit card statements. "Dinners for 2 at Romano's, every Tuesday for the past 4 months. I work late Tuesdays. Hotel charges at the Meridian downtown. She told me those were work conferences." "Smart girl," Owen admitted grudgingly, keeping it close to the truth. "Not smart enough." Michael pulled up Teresa's social media. She's been careful not to post photos with him, but look at the timestamps on her check-ins. Meridian Hotel, Romano's, that art gallery downtown. Julius posts at the same locations, same times. Owen leaned back in his chair. "So what's the plan?" "Divorce lawyers and custody fights." Michael's smile was sharp as a blade. "Owen, my friend, you're thinking too small. Teresa and Julius aren't just cheating on me. They've been planning this for months. The timing of everything, the way she's handled our assets, the fact that she had divorce papers ready before the birth. This isn't an affair that got out of hand. This is a calculated con." Michael's phone had been buzzing constantly. 17 missed calls from Teresa, then calls from numbers he didn't recognize. Finally, a voicemail from someone claiming to be Teresa's lawyer. "Mr. Woodard, this is Edward Lowery, representing Teresa Woodard. There's been a family emergency, and we need to speak with you immediately. Please call my office first thing tomorrow morning." "Emergency?" Owen snorted. "Yeah, the emergency is that her mark figure out the game." Michael stood, straightening his shoulders. "Here's what we're going to do. First, I'm going to document everything, every lie, every hidden expense, every piece of evidence that this was premeditated fraud. They were going to find out exactly what Teresa and Julius thought they were going to get out of this. And finally," his eyes hardened, "we're going to give them exactly what they deserve." "What about the baby?" Owen asked quietly. Michael paused at the window, looking out at the city lights. "If it's not mine, and I'm certain it's not, then that child deserves better than parents who are liars and thieves. Whatever I do, that baby comes first. But Teresa and Julius," he turned back to Owen, "they're about to learn that you don't con a man who's made his living by knowing exactly where to place the charges to bring down a building." As dawn broke over the city, Michael's phone rang one more time. This time he answered. "Michael Woodard." "Mr. Woodard, thank God. This is Edward Lowery. We have a situation that requires immediate—" "Mr. Lowery," Michael interrupted smoothly, "I know exactly what situation we have. And you're right, it does require immediate attention. I'll be in touch." He hung up and smiled at Owen. "Time to build something new, partner. Something they'll never see coming." Chapter 3: The Gathering Storm. Anna Fry had made her reputation as the private investigator lawyers called when they needed miracles. A former FBI agent with contacts throughout law enforcement and the financial sector, she specialized in cases where people thought they were too clever to get caught. When Owen Norris called her at 6 a.m. requesting an emergency meeting, she knew it would be interesting. She arrived at Woodard Construction to find 2 men who looked like they'd been up all night planning a war. Michael Woodard impressed her immediately, calm, organized, and radiating the kind of controlled intensity that suggested dangerous competence. "Ms. Fry," Michael began without preamble, "I need everything you can find on Teresa, Shea Woodard, and Julius Caldwell. Financial records, communications, travel patterns, associates, everything. I also need it fast, and I need it bulletproof." Anna accepted the files Michael handed her, scanning the contents quickly. "Paternity fraud and planned asset stripping. Nasty. How much do you think they're after? Our house is worth $1.2 million. My business is valued around $4 million. Joint accounts have another $300,000. Teresa knows I've been setting aside money for the baby's college fund. That's another $200,000. Michael's voice remained steady. Plus, if she could establish paternity and make me believe the child was mine, she'd have child support for 18 years. So we're talking about a potential 7-figure theft." Anna made notes. Timeline. Owen leaned forward. "Their lawyer wants to meet today. Teresa's calling every few minutes. Whatever they planned, my guess is they need to move fast now that Mike didn't fall for the setup. Which brings me to my other requirement," Michael said. "I don't just want evidence. I want to know their entire plan, who else is involved, what they intended to do after the divorce, where they planned to go. And I want to know it before they realize how much trouble they're in. Anna smiled. This was why she loved her job. Standard investigative package runs about $50,000. But for what you're asking, deep surveillance, financial forensics, communication intercepts, we're looking at more. Money isn't the issue, Michael replied. Results are. Can you do it? Mr. Woodard, in my experience, people who are stupid enough to try this kind of con are usually stupid in other ways too. Give me 72 hours. After Anna left, Michael and Owen returned to the conference room. Michael had drawn up a timeline on the whiteboard. Every significant event in the past year mapped against what they now knew. Look at the pattern, Michael said. Teresa starts working late in March, right when Julie is transferred to her department. In April, she opens a solo checking account for personal expenses. May, she suggests I update my will now that we're having a baby. June, she pushes for me to take out a larger life insurance policy. Owen studied the timeline. She's been planning this for 8 months minimum. But Mike, if they're this organized, they've got to have an exit strategy. They're not going to stick around and fight a long custody battle. Exactly. Which means they need a quick settlement or... Michael paused. Owen, what if the goal wasn't just to steal my money? What if they needed me completely out of the picture? The implications hung heavy in the air. Owen reached for his phone. I'm calling my security guy. Until we know what we're dealing with, you're not going anywhere alone. Michael's phone rang. This time, the caller ID showed Teresa. Answer it, Owen said. But be careful. Hello, Teresa. Michael. Thank God. Where are you? I've been calling all night. Her voice was perfectly pitched, worried, exhausted, with just the right touch of new mother vulnerability. I had to take care of some business. How are you feeling? I'm scared, Michael. Something happened. Julius came by to check on me, as a colleague, and some men came to the hospital asking questions about you, about your business. They showed badges, said there was some kind of investigation. Michael's eyes met Owen's. The performance was flawless, but now they understood the game. What kind of investigation? I don't know. They wouldn't tell me much, but Michael, they said something about financial irregularities, about the business being used for money laundering. I told them it was impossible, that you're the most honest man I know, but she let her voice break slightly. They said you might be in serious trouble, that I needed to protect myself and the baby. I see. And what did Julius suggest you do? He gave me the name of a lawyer. Edward Lowry. Michael, I'm so sorry, but Julius thinks I should file for separation until this gets sorted out, just to protect our assets from whatever legal trouble you're in. Michael almost admired the craftsmanship. Create a false crisis. Position Julius as the helpful colleague. Make Teresa the innocent victim who has no choice but to divorce him for her own protection. It was elegant, thorough, and completely illegal. Teresa, I want you to do whatever you think is best for you and the baby. If that means separation, then that's what we'll do. The silence on the other end stretched too long. He'd surprised her. Really? You're not angry? Honey, if there's really an investigation, then yes, you should protect yourself. I'll call Edward Lowry myself and make sure you're taken care of. Oh, Michael, I knew you'd understand. I love you so much. I love you too, Teresa. We'll get through this together. After he hung up, Owen stared at him. Please tell me you have a plan that doesn't involve just rolling over. Michael's smile was predatory. Owen, Teresa, and Julius just made a critical mistake. They got greedy. Instead of just stealing my money, they decided to destroy my reputation too. Which means they've committed multiple felonies, and they've done it using methods that require documentation. He turned to the whiteboard and drew a new diagram. They think they're playing chess, but they've actually walked into a construction zone. And I know exactly where to place the explosives. Chapter 4. The Architecture of Deception. Anna Fry worked fast and thorough. By Wednesday evening, she had built a comprehensive picture that impressed even her. Teresa and Julius hadn't just planned a theft. They'd orchestrated a complex fraud that reached into Michael's business, his personal life, and his reputation. It's beautiful, in a criminal mastermind way, Anna told Michael and Owen as she spread documents across the conference table. Teresa opened 7 different accounts using variations of her maiden name. Julius has been feeding her inside information about pharmaceutical company contracts, information she's been passing to competing construction firms. Michael studied the bank records. She's been sabotaging my bids. Worse, she's been letting your competitors underbid you by exactly the margins they need to win, then taking kickbacks through her consulting fees. Look at this. Anna showed them a series of wire transfers. Every time you lost a big contract in the past 6 months, Teresa received a payment to one of her accounts. Owen's face darkened. That's why we've been struggling lately. It's not the economy, it's sabotage. Gets worse, Anna continued. Julius Caldwell isn't just a pharmaceutical sales rep. He's got a record, securities fraud in California 8 years ago. Changed his name from Julius Carpenter to Julius Caldwell after his conviction. So Teresa's having a baby with a convicted fraudster while stealing her husband's business out from under him. Owen summarized. What about the fake investigation story? Anna pulled out another file. Ingenious. Julius has a contact at a private investigation firm. Marshall Dunn, another ex-con. They've been creating fake federal paperwork suggesting that Woodard Construction is under investigation for money laundering. The plan was to panic Teresa into filing for emergency divorce, claiming she needed to protect marital assets from seizure. Michael absorbed this silently, then asked, "What about after the divorce?" That's the really clever part. They weren't planning to stay in town. Julius has been negotiating a position with a pharmaceutical company in Costa Rica, a country with no extradition treaty for financial crimes. The plan was to take your money, disappear to Central America, and raise the baby as a family, leaving me broke, disgraced, and legally responsible for a child that isn't mine, Michael said quietly. There's more, Anna said reluctantly. I found life insurance applications Julius filled out online, using your personal information. Different companies, different amounts, all applied for in the past month. The room went silent. Owen broke it first. They were going to kill you, or arrange for it to look like suicide, Anna corrected. A man facing federal investigation, losing his business, finding out his child isn't his, depression, desperation, tragic end. Teresa inherits everything, including the insurance payouts. Michael stood and walked to the window, looking out at the construction site across the street. Men were working late, installing steel beams under floodlights. How long before they realize their plan isn't working? Edward Lowery, Teresa's lawyer, has been calling her office every few hours. Julius has been pushing Teresa to escalate, file restraining orders, claim domestic abuse, anything to freeze your assets quickly. I'd say you have maybe 48 hours before they either panic and run, or Anna didn't finish the sentence, or they decide to move to Plan B. Michael completed. The permanent solution. Owen reached for his phone. That's it. I'm calling the FBI. No. Michael's voice was sharp. Not yet. Mike, they're talking about murdering you. This isn't about revenge anymore. Owen, if we call the FBI now, what do we have? Circumstantial evidence of fraud, maybe conspiracy. Teresa can claim she was coerced. Julius disappears back to Costa Rica. They walk away with slaps on the wrist, and I spend years in court trying to get my money back. Michael turned from the window. I want them to finish what they started. I want them to commit to a course of action they can't take back. Anna studied him with professional interest. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that if you want to catch a spider, you don't destroy the web. You make yourself look like prey. Michael moved to the whiteboard and began sketching a new diagram. Teresa and Julius think they're brilliant. They think they've accounted for every variable. But they've made one critical assumption, that I'm the same trusting man who married Teresa 5 years ago. And you're not. Owen asked. Michael's smile was cold as winter steel. Owen, I've spent my entire career learning how to tear down structures built by other people. These two have built themselves a very pretty web of lies. Tomorrow, I'm going to start pulling threads. And when it all comes down, he turned back to his friends. I want to make sure they're still inside when it collapses. He picked up his phone and dialed Edward Lowery's office. Mr. Lowery? This is Michael Woodard. I understand you've been trying to reach me. I think it's time we talked. Chapter 5, The Perfect Trap. Edward Lowry's law office screamed expensive legitimacy. Mahogany furniture, leather-bound books, diplomas from prestigious schools. The lawyer himself was smooth and polished, radiating the kind of confidence that came from years of successful manipulation. Michael recognized the type immediately, a predator who preferred legal weapons to honest work. Mr. Woodard, thank you for coming in. I know this is a difficult time. Lowry gestured to a chair across from his massive desk. Your wife is understandably distraught about these federal allegations. Michael settled into the chair, playing the role of confused, worried husband. I still don't understand what investigation Teresa was talking about. My business is completely legitimate. I'm sure it is, Lowry said smoothly. But in situations like these, perception matters more than reality. The federal government has vast resources and wide authority. When they target a business, they can freeze assets, seize records, destroy reputations, all before proving any actual wrongdoing. So what are you suggesting? Mrs. Woodard needs protection. Legal separation of assets, emergency custody arrangements, perhaps a temporary restraining order if she feels unsafe. Lowry slid a document across the desk. This agreement would transfer the marital home and liquid assets to her name, ensuring they can't be seized during the investigation. Michael read through the papers, his expression growing more concerned with each page. This would leave me with almost nothing. Temporarily. Once you're cleared, you can renegotiate. But right now, your wife and newborn need security. Lowry leaned forward with practiced sympathy. Mr. Woodard, I've seen federal investigations destroy good men. The smart ones protect their families first. Michael looked up from the documents. And you're sure Teresa wants this? It seems so extreme. She's terrified, Mr. Woodard. A new mother, facing the possibility that her husband might be arrested, that their assets might be frozen. She's not thinking about money. She's thinking about survival. I need time to consider this. Unfortunately, time is a luxury we don't have. The federal team could move at any moment. Mrs. Woodard needs these protections in place immediately. Michael stood, clutching the papers. Can I speak with Teresa first? Of course. She's at the hospital. Room 314. But Mr. Woodard, Lowry's smile didn't reach his eyes. Don't take too long. The window for protecting your family is closing rapidly. Outside Lowry's office, Michael immediately called Anna. Phase 1 complete. They took the bait. How'd you play it? Confused, scared, but willing to protect my family. Lowry thinks he's got a sheep ready for shearing. Michael got into his car. What's the status on the surveillance? Beautiful. Julius visited Teresa twice today, both times when the nurses were at shift change. Our cameras caught them reviewing documents that look suspiciously like bank routing numbers and travel itineraries. Good. And a life insurance. Marshall Dunn filed the final application yesterday. They're moving fast now that they think you're cornered. Mike, be careful going to the hospital. If they're accelerating the timeline, I'll have backup. Owen's following me with his security team. Michael started the car. Anna, I need one more favor. Can you give me a meeting with Detective Nicholas Hubbard at Metro PD? The fraud division. Hubbard? He's solid. But why local PD instead of federal? Because what Teresa and Julius don't know is that I've been documenting everything they've done since Tuesday morning. By tomorrow night, I want law enforcement to have a complete case file, fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder, everything. But I need them ready to move at exactly the right moment. Anna paused. What moment is that? When Teresa and Julius think they've won. When they believe I'm dead or disappeared, and they're preparing to disappear themselves. Michael's voice hardened. I want them caught with their hands in the cookie jar, surrounded by evidence they can't explain away. At the hospital, Michael found Teresa looking radiant and vulnerable. The perfect picture of a new mother whose husband had disappointed her. Julius Caldwell wasn't visible, but Michael knew he was close by. The setup was too important for Julius to leave to chance. Michael, Teresa's eyes filled with tears as he entered the room. I'm so glad you came. The lawyer said. He said you might not want to see me. Of course I want to see you. Michael sat beside her bed, taking her hand. Teresa, I'm scared. These investigators, the things they're saying about the business. I know, baby. I know. She squeezed his hand. But we'll get through this. Edward says if we act quickly, we can protect what matters most. The papers he showed me, they would leave me with nothing. Teresa's eyes flickered, just for a moment, with something that wasn't love or concern. It's only temporary, Michael. Once this investigation ends, we'll figure out the rest. But right now, I need to know our baby is safe. Michael looked at the infant sleeping in the hospital bassinet. The child was beautiful. Dark hair, Julius's distinctive nose. Nothing of Michael's features visible at all. Have you thought about names? I was thinking, Julius, if it's okay with you. After my father. The lie came so smoothly that Michael almost admired her skill. Julius is a strong name, he agreed. When do you want me to sign the papers? Tomorrow morning? Edward said he could meet us here at the hospital, make it official before. She let her voice trail off. Before they arrest me? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Michael stood. Teresa, whatever happens, I want you to know I love you. I've always loved you. She reached for him, pulling him down to kiss her forehead. I love you too, Michael. More than you'll ever know. Walking out of the hospital, Michael felt the weight of his phone in his pocket. Every word of their conversation had been recorded. By tomorrow evening, Teresa and Julius would have committed themselves so completely to their fraud that retreat would be impossible. He called Owen as he reached his car. It's tomorrow night. Have everyone ready. Are you sure about this, Mike? Once you spring this trap, Owen, they were going to kill me and steal everything I built. Tomorrow night, they're going to discover that the man they thought was weak enough to manipulate is strong enough to destroy them both. As Michael drove away from the hospital, he didn't see Julius Caldwell watching from a window 3 floors up, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in urgent whispers to Marshall Dunn. The timeline had just accelerated. Chapter 6, The Closing Net. Anna Fry had worked through the night, and by Thursday morning, she had assembled what she privately considered a masterpiece of criminal investigation. The conference room at Woodard Construction looked like a federal task force headquarters. Photographs, financial records, phone transcripts, and surveillance images covering every available surface. They're moving tonight, she announced as Michael and Owen arrived with coffee and grim expressions. Julius booked 3 seats on a red-eye flight to Miami, connecting to Costa Rica. Marshall Dunn has been busy. He filed false police reports claiming you're a flight risk, and he's got fake federal marshals standing by to arrest you at your house this evening. Michael studied the airline confirmations. 3 seats. Teresa, Julius, and the baby. They've got new identities prepared. Documents are already at the airport. Anna pulled out a folder. But here's the beautiful part. Julius used his real credit card to book the flights. He's so convinced you'll be dead by morning that he got sloppy. Owen looked at the surveillance photos showing Julius entering and leaving a downtown warehouse. What's in the warehouse? Marshall Dunn's base of operations. Fake police equipment, fraudulent documents, and, according to our thermal imaging, enough chemicals to stage a very convincing suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning. Anna's voice was clinical, but her eyes were angry. The plan is elegant. Fake federal agents arrest you at home, transport you to the warehouse, stage your death, dump your body back at your house with a note confessing to financial crimes and expressing despair over losing your family. Michael absorbed this without visible emotion. Timeline. Based on their phone intercepts, the fake arrest happens at 6 p.m. That gives Teresa time to sign the asset transfer documents with Lowry, get discharged from the hospital, and make their midnight flight. Anna, check her watch. It's 10 a.m. now. 8 hours. Perfect. Michael moved to the whiteboard and began drawing a new diagram. Anna, I need Detective Hubbard here in 1 hour with a full tactical team. Owen, call your security crew and have them ready to move. And I need video equipment, professional grade, everything admissible in court. Mike, what exactly are you planning? Owen's voice carried years of friendship and growing concern. Michael's smile was sharp as broken glass. I'm going to give Teresa and Julius exactly what they want. They want me to disappear? I'm going to disappear. They want to steal my money? They're going to think they've stolen my money. They want me dead. He turned to face his friends. They're going to believe I'm dead right up until the moment handcuffs go on their wrists. An hour later, Detective Nicholas Hubbard arrived with 3 unmarked cars and a team that looked like they'd stepped out of federal task force briefing. Hubbard was a 20-year veteran of fraud investigation, and Anna's case file had impressed him enough to commit significant resources. Mr. Woodard, this is the most comprehensive fraud documentation I've seen in 15 years, Hubbard said, reviewing the evidence. We could arrest them right now. Detective, if you arrest them now, what charges can you make stick? Fraud, conspiracy, maybe attempted murder if you can prove intent. But they'll lawyer up, claim coercion, blame each other. Michael pointed to the surveillance photos. I want them caught in the act. I want them to commit crimes so obvious and so documented that no jury in the world would acquit them. Hubbard studied the timeline Michael had drawn. You're talking about letting them think they've murdered you. That's extremely dangerous. It's perfect, Michael replied. They think I'm a naive victim. Tonight, they'll discover they've been planning to murder a man who's been watching their every move for 3 days. When they realize how badly they've underestimated me, when they're sitting in handcuffs with their entire plan exposed. His expression hardened. That's when they'll understand what real fear feels like. Detective Hubbard made his decision. What do you need from us? Simple. I need you to let them take me. I need them to believe their plan is working perfectly. And then, when they're convinced they've won, I need you to show them exactly how wrong they were. Anna opened her laptop and pulled up building schematics. Marshall Dunn's warehouse has 4 entrances and no rear exit. Once they're inside, they're trapped. We'll have the entire building surrounded with cameras recording everything. What about your safety? Owen asked. Mike, if something goes wrong. Michael clasped his friend's shoulder. Owen, I've been building things my entire life. I know how to construct something that looks weak, but is actually stronger than steel. Tonight, Teresa and Julius are going to learn that lesson the hard way. As the team prepared for the evening's operation, Michael made one final call. Edward Lowry's secretary confirmed that Teresa would be at the lawyer's office at 4 p.m. to sign the asset transfer documents. Every piece was falling into place. At 3:30 p.m., Michael's phone rang. Teresa's voice was tight with barely controlled excitement. Michael, Edward needs you to come to the hospital right now. The federal agents are here. They want to search the house, and they have questions about the business. Edward thinks if you cooperate fully, you might be able to avoid arrest. Are you sure that's wise? Maybe I should get my own lawyer. Michael, please. Trust me on this. Edward knows how to handle these situations. Come to the hospital first, then we'll go to his office together. Okay, Michael said, injecting defeat into his voice. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at his team. Showtime. Detective Hubbard activated his radio. All units, subject is moving. Operation is a go. As Michael drove toward what Teresa and Julius believed would be his final destination, he felt a cold satisfaction settle over him. For 3 days, he'd been playing the role of victim. Tonight, they would discover who the real predator was. Chapter 7. The Final Performance. The hospital parking garage felt like a stage set for the final act of a very dark play. Michael parked in the same spot where he discovered Teresa's betrayal 3 nights ago, but this time he wasn't alone. Hidden throughout the garage, Detective Hubbard's team waited with professional patience while Anna monitored from a surveillance van parked across the street. Michael's phone buzzed with a text from Teresa, room 314. Come alone. Edward is here. He entered the hospital elevator wearing a wire so sophisticated that it could pick up whispered conversations from across a room. As the floors counted up, 2, 3, Michael felt the strange calm that came with perfect preparation. He'd built his trap with the same methodical precision he used to construct buildings, and now it was time to see if the foundation would hold. Room 314 was dimly lit, and Teresa was alone in the bed, looking fragile and worried. But her eyes held a glitter that Michael now recognized as anticipation. Michael, thank God you're here. She reached for him as he approached the bed. Edward had to step out, but he'll be back in a few minutes. The federal agents are asking about specific contracts, specific amounts. They seem to know things about your business that... She let her voice trail off meaningfully. What kind of things? Michael sat beside her, taking her hand. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, dealings with companies that might not be completely legitimate. Teresa squeezed his fingers. Michael, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Is there anything about the business that you haven't told me? Anything that might explain why they're so interested? It was masterfully done. The loving wife, forced to confront the possibility that her husband might be a criminal. Michael almost applauded. Teresa, I swear to you, everything I've done has been legal. I don't understand any of this. She studied his face, and he saw the moment she decided he was telling the truth, which meant he was even more useful as a scapegoat than she'd originally thought. Then we have to trust Edward to sort this out. She pressed a button on her bedside table, and within seconds, two men in dark suits entered the room. They looked exactly like federal agents, down to the badges and official bearing. Mr. Woodard? The taller one stepped forward. I'm Agent Banks, FBI Financial Crimes Division. We need you to come with us for questioning. Michael's performance was perfect. The confusion, the fear, the desperate look at Teresa. I don't understand. What's this about? Sir, we have evidence that your construction company has been used to launder money for several criminal organizations. We need to sort this out downtown. Teresa sat up in bed, her own performance flawless. Michael, go with them. Answer their questions honestly. Edward will meet you there as soon as he can. Teresa, I love you, she said, tears in her eyes. We'll get through this. As the fake agents escorted Michael out of the hospital, Anna's voice crackled through his earpiece. Beautiful performance, both of you. They're completely convinced. Team 2, are you in position at the warehouse? Detective Hubbard's voice confirmed. In position. Building is surrounded. The moment they start the murder attempt, we move. The ride to Marshall Dunn's warehouse took 20 minutes through darkening city streets. Michael sat quietly in the back seat, hands cuffed, while the fake agents discussed their plan with professional casualness. Dunn's got everything ready, the shorter one was saying. Carbon monoxide setup, suicide note, even got the guy's handwriting samples from his wife. Should look perfect. What about disposal? Back to his house, staged like he couldn't take the pressure. Wife finds him tomorrow morning. Devastated widow, inherits everything. Michael filed every word away for the prosecutors. The warehouse district was deserted at 7 p.m., perfect for what Marshall Dunn had planned. The building itself was a former auto repair shop, isolated and soundproof. As they pulled into the parking lot, Michael saw a familiar car, Julius Caldwell's BMW. Inside, the warehouse had been converted into a sophisticated operation. Marshall Dunn was waiting, a thin man with nervous eyes and hands that never stopped moving. Julius stood beside him, no longer the smooth pharmaceutical rep, but someone harder, more desperate. Any problems? Dunn asked the fake agents. None. He thinks we're really FBI. Wife played her part perfectly. Julius stepped forward, studying Michael with cold satisfaction. So this is the famous Michael Woodard. Teresa's described you so many times. The trusting husband, the honest businessman. Tell me, how does it feel to know your wife has been planning this for almost a year? Michael kept his expression confused and frightened. I don't understand. Julius, what are you doing here? Teresa said you were just a colleague. Julius laughed. Teresa said a lot of things. She's very good at telling people what they want to hear. Did you really think a woman like that could love a man like you? A blue-collar nobody who got lucky with one construction company. Where's Teresa now? Michael asked, signing papers that transfer all your assets to her name. She'll be finishing up at Lowry's office right about now. Julius checked his watch. Then she's going home to pack. We have a flight at midnight. Dunn interrupted impatiently. We need to move. The carbon monoxide setup takes about an hour, and we need time to stage the scene at his house. Wait, Julius held up a hand. I want him to understand exactly what happened to him. Teresa and I started planning this the week after we met. Every conversation, every I love you, every moment of your marriage. It was all part of the con. The baby isn't yours, obviously. The business problems, the lost contracts, even your friends starting to doubt you. We arranged all of it. Michael let horror fill his expression. The investigation, the federal agents. All fake, just like your marriage. Julius was enjoying this too much to stop. The beautiful part is after tonight, Teresa inherits everything legally. Your construction company, your house, your life insurance, all of it. We'll be living in Costa Rica while you're buried in a pauper's grave. One more thing, Julius added with cold pleasure. Teresa wanted you to know that she never loved you. Not for one single day. You were always just a mark, a paycheck, a means to an end. It was exactly the confession Anna needed for the recording. Enough, Dunn snapped. Let's finish this. But as they moved toward the carbon monoxide equipment, Michael's earpiece crackled to life with Anna's voice. Phase 2 complete. Teresa just signed everything over and is heading home. Hubbard, you're green for go. The warehouse doors exploded inward simultaneously, flooding the space with brilliant tactical lights. FBI, hands in the air. Nobody move. The look on Julius's face was worth everything Michael had endured. Confusion, then comprehension, then pure terror as he realized how completely he'd been outplayed. Detective Hubbard strode into the warehouse, his team already cuffing Dunn and the fake agents. Julius Caldwell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, identity theft, and about 15 other felonies. Marshall Dunn, same charges plus impersonating federal officers. Julius stared at Michael in disbelief. How did you? Michael stood up, no longer playing the victim. Julius, you made one critical mistake. You assumed that because I trusted my wife, I was stupid. But I didn't build a multi-million-dollar company by being naive. He stepped closer to the handcuffed man. I've been watching you and Teresa since Tuesday morning. Every lie, every plan, every crime. We recorded all of it. That's impossible. Teresa said what I wanted her to say. She thought she was manipulating me, but I was feeding her exactly the responses she needed to hear to keep confessing. Michael's smile was cold as winter. Did you really think I'd go to my own murder without backup? Anna entered the warehouse, laptop in hand. Gentlemen, you'll be interested to know that Teresa just walked into her own arrest. The moment she entered the house, she triggered surveillance cameras that recorded her packing suitcases full of stolen documents and cash. She looked at Julius with professional satisfaction. She's also been very talkative about your plans to disappear to Costa Rica. Apparently, she thought she was calling you to confirm everything was going smoothly. Julius's face went white. She told him everything, including some very interesting details about how you plan to kill Michael and stage a suicide. Anna closed her laptop. Julius, you and Teresa deserve each other. You're both going to prison for the rest of your lives. As the police led Julius and his accomplices away, Detective Hubbard turned to Michael. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the most reckless. Michael watched the squad cars disappearing into the night. Detective, 3 days ago, I thought I was going to be a father. Tonight, I found out my wife and her lover were planning to murder me and steal everything I'd worked for. He straightened his shoulders. Brave, reckless, those are just words. What matters is that justice is done. What happens now? Owen asked, joining them in the warehouse. Michael looked around at the scene of what should have been his murder. The equipment, the fake documents, the elaborate setup designed to erase him from existence. Now we go home and build something better. But even as he said it, Michael knew the real confrontation was still ahead. Teresa was waiting for him, and she had no idea that her perfect plan had just collapsed around her. Chapter 8, Face to Face. The house Michael and Teresa had shared for 3 years felt like a crime scene when he walked through the front door at 10 p.m. Police cars lined the street, and neighbors watched from their windows as Detective Hubbard's team finished processing evidence. But Teresa herself sat at the kitchen table, still in her hospital clothes, hands cuffed behind her back, staring at nothing with the expression of someone whose world had ended. She looked up when Michael entered, and for a moment, her mask slipped completely. No loving wife, no vulnerable new mother, just raw fury and disbelief. Ow, she whispered. Michael sat across from her at the table they'd shared for countless meals, where they'd planned their future and discussed names for the baby she'd known wasn't his. How long have you known about Julius's criminal record? Teresa's laugh was bitter. From the beginning. That's why I chose him. A man with nothing to lose makes a perfect partner for this kind of work. And how long have you been planning to kill me? Since about 2 months into our marriage. Her voice was matter-of-fact now, as if she'd decided honesty was her only remaining weapon. You were so earnest, so trusting. It was almost insulting how easy you made it. Detective Hubbard entered the kitchen, carrying evidence bags filled with documents. Mrs. Woodard, we found your real wedding certificate. The one where you married Julius Caldwell 6 months before you met Michael. Michael felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. What? That's right. Teresa smiled with genuine pleasure at his shock. Our entire marriage was bigamy. Legally, you were never my husband. Which means everything you've built, everything you've earned, technically belongs to Julius and me as co-conspirators. Hubbard shook his head. Actually, Mrs. Caldwell, since that's your legal name, it doesn't work that way. Bigamous marriages don't create legal property rights. And since your entire relationship with Mr. Woodard was based on fraud, you have no claim to anything. Teresa's composure cracked slightly. You can't prove fraud. I can claim I loved him, that the business partnership was legitimate. We can prove fraud, Anna said, entering with her laptop, because you documented everything. She opened the computer and turned it toward Teresa. Your email account. 17 months of correspondence with Julius, planning every detail of the con, including some very specific discussions about the best methods for staging suicides. Teresa stared at the screen, her face cycling through emotions, shock, rage, and finally, something that might have been respect. You read my emails. We read everything, Michael said quietly. Bank records, travel receipts, hotel registrations, phone logs. Teresa, you and Julius were so convinced you were smarter than everyone else that you documented your crimes in detail. Anna scrolled through the emails. This one's my favorite. Michael is so pathetically grateful for any attention that he'll never suspect anything. We could steal everything he owns, and he'd probably thank us for it. Sent to Julius 3 weeks after your wedding. Teresa's mask finally shattered completely. You want to know the truth, Michael? The real truth? I've never met a man more boring, more predictable, more utterly ordinary than you. You think building houses makes you special? You think working with your hands makes you noble? You're nothing. You're a peasant who got lucky once, and you were too stupid to realize when someone better came along. Michael absorbed this calmly. Is that why you chose me? Because you thought I was stupid? I chose you because you were rich and lonely and desperate for a pretty woman to validate your pathetic little life. Teresa leaned forward as much as the handcuffs allowed. Do you know how many times Julius and I laughed about you? About your earnest little speeches about building our future together? About the way you lit up whenever I pretended to be interested in your boring business stories? What about the baby? Michael asked. Julius says, obviously. We planned the pregnancy timing perfectly, right when your business was taking off, when you were making the most money. Her smile was vicious. Did you see how excited you were? Planning the nursery, buying baby clothes, talking about college funds? It was almost too easy. Detective Hubbard had been taking notes throughout the conversation. Mrs. Caldwell, you realize you're confessing to multiple felonies in front of witnesses? What does it matter now? Teresa's voice held a kind of reckless abandon. You already have enough evidence to put me away forever. At least I can make sure Michael knows exactly what I think of him. Michael stood and walked to the window, looking out at the police cars and crime scene tape surrounding what had been his home. Teresa, can I ask you something? What? Was there ever a moment, even one moment, when you felt anything real for me? Any guilt about what you were doing? Teresa considered the question seriously. Once, about 6 months ago, when you were working late on that hospital project, and you called to check if I was okay because there'd been a storm. You were so worried, so genuinely concerned about my safety. She paused. For about 30 seconds, I felt bad about destroying you. And then I remembered that you were worth $4 million and Julius was waiting for me in our hotel room. Her smile returned. The feeling passed quickly. Anna, close your laptop. I think we have enough here. As Detective Hubbard prepared to transport Teresa to jail, she had one final question for Michael. How did you know? What gave it away? Michael turned from the window. The note. What note? The note you left in your car at the hospital. He's not yours. Don't come back. Get lost from our lives. Michael met her eyes. Teresa, if you'd really been planning to reveal the truth after the birth, if this had been just an affair that got out of hand, you would have told me in person. You'd have been crying, apologetic, maybe hoping I'd forgive you and help raise the baby anyway. Teresa stared at him. But that note was cold, calculated. It read like someone who'd been planning this conversation for months. And then, when I looked up at your hospital room and saw Julius there, everything clicked. You weren't revealing an affair. You were executing a plan. So you knew from Tuesday night? I suspected from Tuesday night. I knew for certain Wednesday morning, when you called with the fake federal investigation story. Teresa, I've been in business for 15 years. I know what real federal investigations look like, and they don't involve helpful colleagues and emergency asset transfers. Teresa shook her head slowly. You played me. I played you the same way you played me, by telling you what you wanted to hear and letting you dig your own grave. As the police led Teresa away, she had one last thing to say. Michael, you may have one tonight, but you're still the same boring, ordinary man you always were. I'm going to prison, but you're going to spend the rest of your life remembering that the woman you loved never existed. After the front door closed and the police cars departed, Michael stood alone in his kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of a life built on lies. Owen joined him, carrying 2 beers. So what happens now? Owen asked. Michael accepted the beer and considered the question. Now I decide who I want to be next. Teresa was right about one thing. The man who married her was naive and trusting. But the man who brought her down, he smiled. That man is someone new. Think you'll ever trust anyone again? Michael looked around at his house. His real house, bought with money he'd earned honestly, filled with memories that were now tainted but still his. Owen, I learned something important this week. It's not trust that makes you vulnerable. It's the assumption that everyone thinks like you do. Teresa and Julius failed because they assumed I was weak. I almost failed because I assumed they were honest. And now I know better. I'll trust again, but I'll verify everything. And if anyone ever tries to con me again, Michael's expression hardened. They'll discover that Michael Woodard is a very different man than he was a week ago. Outside, the last police car was pulling away, taking Teresa and Julius toward justice. But Michael knew the real work was just beginning. He had a business to rebuild, a life to reconstruct, and a new version of himself to discover. The old Michael Woodard, trusting, naive, easily manipulated, had died in that hospital parking lot 3 nights ago. The man standing in this kitchen was someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous to anyone who mistook his kindness for weakness. Chapter 9. Reconstruction. 6 months later, Michael Woodard stood in his new office, watching his construction crew put the finishing touches on the city's newest community center. The building was his gift to the neighborhood, funded entirely from the money he'd recovered from Teresa and Julius, plus the substantial damages the court had awarded him. Looks good, Owen said, joining him at the window. Different from what we usually build. Different is the point, Michael replied. The community center was indeed different. Not just another commercial project, but something that would serve families, children, people trying to build honest lives. I needed to build something that mattered. Anna Fry knocked on the doorframe. Got a few minutes? I have the final report from the prosecutors. They settled around Michael's new desk, smaller than the old one, but in an office with windows that actually opened and walls that weren't designed to intimidate anyone. Teresa and Julius both pled guilty, Anna announced. Teresa got 25 to life for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and bigamy. Julius got 30 to life. His previous conviction made him a habitual offender. What about Marshall Dunn and the fake agents? Dunn got 15 years for conspiracy and impersonating federal officers. The fake agents, both career criminals, got 10 years each. Anna smiled with satisfaction. None of them will be eligible for parole for at least a decade. Michael nodded calmly. Justice had been served, but he'd discovered that revenge felt different than he'd expected. There was satisfaction, certainly, but also a kind of emptiness. Teresa and Julius were gone from his life forever, but that didn't erase the 3 years he'd spent living a lie. There's something else, Anna continued. The baby. Michael's expression didn't change, but Owen saw his hands tighten slightly on his coffee cup. Julius's parental rights were terminated due to his conviction. Teresa's parents petitioned for custody, but Anna paused delicately. Given Teresa's crimes and their advanced age, the court was hesitant. The baby needs a stable home. What are you suggesting? Michael asked quietly. The court appointed a guardian ad litem to represent the child's interests. She's reviewed the entire case, including the evidence that you believed you were the father and were prepared to love and raise the child. She's recommended that you be given the opportunity to petition for adoption, if you're interested. Michael was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the community center. The child is innocent, he said finally. Whatever Teresa and Julius did, that baby didn't choose any of it. So, Owen prompted. Michael turned back to his friends. I need to think about it. That child deserves a father who's choosing to be his dad, not someone who's just trying to be noble. If I'm going to do this, it has to be for the right reasons. Anna gathered her papers. Take your time. The guardian said there's no rush. The foster family is excellent, and the baby is healthy and well cared for. After Anna left, Michael and Owen sat in comfortable silence, watching the construction crews work. It was honest work, men and women building something that would last, something that would serve a good purpose. You know what's funny? Owen said eventually, Teresa was right about one thing. You are ordinary. You work hard, you're honest, you care about other people, you try to do the right thing. In a world full of people trying to get rich quick and take advantage of each other, that's pretty ordinary. Michael smiled. Thank you. I'm serious. Teresa and Julius thought being ordinary made you weak. But it's what made you strong. They couldn't understand you because they couldn't imagine someone who actually meant what he said, who actually cared about other people more than money. Michael considered this. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, about what kind of man I want to be going forward. And I want to be the kind of man who builds things that last. Not just buildings, relationships, trust, communities. I want to be the kind of person who makes the world a little bit better, even if nobody notices. Owen smiled. So basically, you want to keep being Michael Woodard. A smarter version, maybe. A more careful version. But yeah, I like who I am. I just needed to learn to protect myself better. That evening, Michael drove to the foster home where Teresa and Julius's baby was living. He didn't go inside. That would have been inappropriate without official approval. But he sat in his car across the street, watching through windows as a loving family cared for a child whose parents had abandoned him in pursuit of money and cruelty. His phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something made him answer. Michael? This is Dr. Sarah Chun. I'm the court-appointed guardian for the baby. I understand Anna Fry spoke with you about the adoption possibility. She did. I was wondering if you'd be willing to meet with me. Not to pressure you, but to discuss what would be involved, what the child's needs are, that sort of thing. Michael watched as the foster mother appeared in the window, gently rocking a small bundle. Dr. Chun, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think it's possible for someone to love a child that isn't biologically theirs? Really love them, not just feel obligated or responsible. There was a pause. Mr. Woodard, some of the strongest parent-child relationships I've seen have been through adoption. Biology creates children, but love creates families. When can we meet? 2 weeks later, Michael sat in a different courtroom than the one where Teresa and Julius had been sentenced. This one was smaller, warmer, designed for family matters rather than criminal cases. Dr. Chin sat beside him, along with the lawyer who'd guided him through the adoption process. The judge reviewed the paperwork with careful attention. Mr. Woodard, you understand that this adoption is permanent? That you'll be legally and financially responsible for this child until adulthood? I understand, Your Honor. And you understand the unusual circumstances, that you initially believed you were the biological father, that the child's biological parents are both incarcerated for serious crimes against you personally? I do. Why do you want to adopt this baby, Mr. Woodard? Michael had spent weeks preparing for this question, but when the moment came, the answer was simple. Because he deserves a father who chooses him. Not someone who feels trapped by circumstances or biology, but someone who decides every day to love him and protect him and help him grow into a good man. The judge nodded. What will you tell him about his biological parents when he's old enough to ask? The truth. That his biological parents made terrible choices, but that those choices don't define him. That he gets to decide what kind of person he wants to be, and that no matter what he chooses, I'll be proud to be his dad. And if someday he wants to know more about where he came from, Michael smiled. Then I'll help him find those answers. My job isn't to hide his history from him. It's to give him the love and stability he needs to handle whatever he discovers. The judge signed the papers with a flourish. Congratulations, Mr. Woodard. You're now the legal father of David Michael Woodard. David Michael Woodard. They'd chosen the name together. David because it meant beloved, and Michael because, as Dr. Chun had explained, sometimes children need to know they're connected to the people who choose to love them. That evening, Michael sat in the nursery he'd spent 2 weeks preparing. David slept peacefully in his crib, tiny fists curled against his cheeks. He had Julius's dark hair, but his own expressions, his own personality already beginning to emerge. Owen knocked softly on the doorframe. How's it feel, Dad? Michael looked down at his son, not by biology, but by choice, and felt something he'd never experienced before. Not the romantic love he'd thought he had with Teresa, not the friendship he valued with Owen, but something deeper and more permanent. It feels like building something that will last forever, he said quietly. Think he'll ask about Teresa and Julius someday? I'm sure he will. And when he does, I'll tell him that his biological parents were people who forgot what really mattered in life. But that every day since I became his dad, I've tried to remember that love isn't something you take, it's something you give. That family isn't something you're born into, it's something you build. And that the most important thing any man can do is choose to be better than he has to be. Michael reached down and gently adjusted David's blanket. Teresa thought I was ordinary, and maybe I am. But if being ordinary means working hard and caring about people and trying to do the right thing, then I'm proud to be ordinary. Owen smiled. Kid's going to do just fine with an ordinary dad like you. As Owen left, Michael settled into the rocking chair beside David's crib. Through the window, he could see the lights of the city he'd helped build, the community center that would serve families for generations, the life he'd reconstructed from the ashes of betrayal. Teresa and Julius had tried to destroy him, but they'd failed to understand the most important thing about Michael Woodard. He wasn't the kind of man who stayed broken. He was the kind who cleaned up the wreckage, learned from the experience, and built something better. Tomorrow, he'd go back to work. He'd build more buildings, create more jobs, contribute to his community. He'd raise his son to be honest and kind and strong. He'd probably fall in love again someday. Carefully this time, but genuinely. Tonight, though, he was content to sit in the peaceful darkness, listening to his son breathe, planning a future built on truth instead of lies. The old Michael Woodard, trusting to a fault, naive about human nature, was gone forever. But the new Michael Woodard was someone better, wiser, stronger, and infinitely more dangerous to anyone who mistook his kindness for weakness. Most importantly, he was a father, not because of biology or obligation, but because he'd chosen to be. And that choice, made freely and with full knowledge of what it meant, was the strongest foundation he'd ever built. Outside, the city hummed with life. Ordinary people living ordinary lives, building ordinary families, creating extraordinary love one day at a time. Michael Woodard smiled and settled deeper into his chair, ready to join them in the beautiful, ordinary work of living well. The last call had been made. The new life had begun. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.